President of the Dominica Association of Industry and Commerce, and Chairman of the Dominica Agricultural Marketing Board. He was a founding member of the United Workers' Party, became deputy leader of the party, and served as MP for the Rosenhof constituency from June 1995. He was appointed Minister of Finance, Industry and Planning and served as Deputy Prime Minister under Prime Minister Edison James from 1995 to 2000. I accompanied Julie at many overseas meetings and advised as an advisor at that time. In 2006, he crossed the floor to join the Dominica Labour Party, where he served as health minister, continued serving in national roles, and later represented the country at regional summits. His efforts in public service, business, and sports left a significant imprint on Dominica's political, economic, and social landscape. Dominica has lost a truly great human being. He will be remembered fondly, of course, as the founder of the World Music Festival and for his dedication to national development and service to the people of Dominica. So, having said that, those are a few words about Julie, I go now to Justice Dr. Irving Andre for his opening comments on Mr. Julius Timothy, and then on the topic, progress on electoral reform and the new requirements for voter registration and reconfirmation, and what needs to be done to move beyond these 25 years of economic stagnation and oppression. Let's get the ball rolling, Dr. Andre.
Well, let me say good evening to our esteemed panelists. I can see they're here. I can see they're ready to make their respective contributions. And I can see myself peeling into insignificance as they open their mouths and start telling us what is everything that is wrong with the latest manifestation of electoral reform. One might cynically say that Dominica has the mark of the beast, because quite frankly, we deserve something a little better, as I will try to talk about this evening. But before we do, Julius, I didn't know him personally, although I had limited interactions with him. But in many respects, he was obviously a visionary. In many respects, he served his country well, as despite the fact that, as with each and every one of us, we have some shortcomings. And certainly he made decisions in the political realm, which many persons frowned upon, including myself. But that said, the man certainly touched many hearts and minds. I can indicate on one aspect, Mr. G, you didn't talk about, was that under his leadership, A.C. Shillingford and Company had a great corporate profile. They sponsored many organizations, whether in the sporting fraternity or in other organizations, in other fields and spheres of life. And certainly he made, under his stewardship, his company made a lasting contribution to the body politic. And that's important because, quite frankly, one can get very cynical when one looks around at some of the corporate field in Dominica today. And there are many standouts, quite frankly. There are many who continue to pay homage to the philosophy of helping those in need. But there are similarly many others who do not. So the fact that many do not help us to appreciate better the contributions of Julius Timothy in the field of business, also in the field of politics, because he certainly made a contribution in the various ministerial capacities that he held. And he was a very bright man, no question about that. I remember speaking with a few of his school colleagues, and everyone made a point of saying that in virtually every class, he was first in his class and in his field. So to that extent, the man deserves credit. He certainly deserves acknowledgement. Let me also acknowledge, as I said, the whole panelists, but in particular, Mr. James. And I'm not seeing Mr. Shillingford. They are members of the Electoral Commission. It is not something to be very proud of these days. But let me commend them for the fact that they have steadfastly maintained fidelity to their principles, to what they believe. They have maintained and manifested an unerring degree of integrity in the role that they play. They could have had it made. Wayne James could be drinking Callaloo with Clarence if he wanted to. He could be drinking BB at Purple Turtle. He could be flying to Dubai to bury his integrity. He could be selling passports and building a hotel which will have no more than 10% occupancy. But Wayne James and Mr. Hilary Shillingford, they've turned their backs on 30 pieces of silver. And they've remained not just the people's choice, but the voice of the people. And for that, on behalf of the Dominican community, I commend you, sir. I must admit that occasionally I pass at a certain business facility somewhere approaching or in the vicinity of I don't want to disclose. I hear you have to have an invitation to go there. And I commend you, sir, for living a life of honesty, for making your wealth the old-fashioned way, both yourself and Hillary. I know that occasionally you come under some criticism, but quite frankly, you deserve all the accolades we can find, because many people would have called it quit and probably go plant peas in Tobago, but you haven't done so. So I commend you for your steadfastness in the face of unrelenting adversity, which takes us to the Electoral Commission and the latest piece of regulation that they've passed, dubiously known as RSRO 39 of 2025. But let me start with a question which has to be asked. How can Dominicans who crave for good governance, who crave for free and fair elections, expect that a passport seller would be the one to deliver the tenets and free and fair elections in Dominica? How can you expect that if your personal financial interest is tied with maintaining the incumbent government in power, keeping them there? What do you expect? Every cynical machination designed for one purpose: to ensure that there is no change in the electoral process, to ensure that there is no change in governance, to ensure that democracy, as we've known it historically, dies a slow and painful death at the hands of these assassins of democracy. How do we expect any better? The Electoral Commission is there as an independent, supposedly I should say, independent instrument of governance to ensure free and fair elections, to ensure that everyone who is eligible to vote is accorded the right to vote. The Electoral Commission, I would say, in my view, has absolutely no jurisdiction to seek to restrict or limit or castrate the right, the democratic right of persons who are otherwise eligible to vote. And to the extent that they have enacted some regulations that basically said that you have to have a government-issued license to vote, that is an abuse of their jurisdiction. In my view, it is an abuse which would not stand judicial scrutiny. In my view, it would not stand judicial scrutiny because it is an unreasonable exercise of their statutory power. And after all, any power they have is given by them in accordance with the statute under which they operate. They do not have the unrestricted discretion to enact regulations that effectively undermine the democratic role of persons in Dominica, persons who are otherwise eligible to vote. Just think of what they've done with this cynical regulation. It has been observed there are many Dominicans, for whatever reason, who do not have a passport. They do not have a social security card. They do not have a driver's license. Quite frankly, those of us who drive, we make the sign of the cross every day because we have to contend with many hazards on the road. So to the extent that you don't have that, there are reasonable statutory alternatives to prove who you are. A document notarized, invariably a lawyer, other means of proving an affirmation as to who you are and what name you go under. These are reasonable documents which reasonable governments, or democracies, I should say, would accept as valid proof. After all, if you can't accept a document notarized, and bear in mind that notarizing a document is basically swearing on an oath that you are ABC. That should be sufficient. The need to vote or the right to vote, it is not a privilege. It is a right if you qualify. And to tell me that the Electoral Commission, at least some, well, the majority vote on the Electoral Commission, I should say. I will not stain the, or impute, I will not stain the integrity or impugn, not impute, of Mr. James and Hilary Shillingford by suggesting that they had any role in this cynical enactment or abuse of their authority. But the question again stands, what do you expect? Look at the history from 2008. That cynical view, not by a political hack, well, I'm wrong, he is a political hack, but by a senior counsel, for God's sakes. He did come out at the bottom of his class in law school, but a senior counsel, nevertheless. The pronouncements, look at the efforts made to thwart recommendations for free and fair elections in Dominica, all turned down. Look at the cynical consultations. The Electoral Commission was nowhere to be seen. They ceded ownership or they ceded leadership on that issue. Guess what? To the government. The institution that was stood most to gain from deciding what type of measures would be masqueraded as electoral reform. And hence the abuse of Sir Dennis Byron. Hence a pronouncement a few weeks ago that the confirmation process has to end at a certain date. And hence the three troubadours or the three dark horsemen on the Electoral Commission conspired to come up with this cynical regulation to ensure that hundreds of persons, potentially, probably thousands, will not be able to vote through no fault of their own. So instead of expanding the parameters of the voting process to ensure that everyone eligible should vote, because after all, this is the mandate of the Electoral Commission, which is a component of good governance in Dominica. They are shrinking the field. They are ensuring that a certain sector do not vote. Talk about farmers who have borne the blows of a pernicious program which says agriculture is a dead horse. It's a has-been industry. And by that type of approach, the farming industry has been decimated. So we can expect theoretically that the farming community would be a target of the incumbent government. Why? Because the farming community has much to say in terms of who should govern them in the next term, post-elections. And there are other persons. And what is the price? Should Dominica be prepared to pay that price? That's cynical use or abuse of authority in Dominica. unchallenged. Or do we think these folk who have LLB behind their name, do we think they're brilliant persons? Probably only to the extent that they are acting in their own self-interest, at the expense of governance in Dominica, at the expense of the people of Dominica. Because let's face it, as someone has stated, it's not the any worker who is going to benefit from this kind of abuse. It's not the poor person who's paid a few cents to rid Zebra from the side of the road. It's not those at the very bottom of the economic scale. It is those who are reaping the rewards and enabling them to enrich themselves even further by buying properties or building properties all over Roseau and the rest of Dominica, by building hotels, although the occupancy rate hovers between 10 to 15%, for God's sakes, by wearing expensive at the expense of Dominica. Not just by covering their houses, after all. Many Dominicans, even supporters of the incumbent government, they cannot afford to cover their houses because they haven't paid sufficient homage to the deity, to the god of corruption in Dominica. And hence we are stuck in this perpetual state. You know, when your tires get stuck in a little muddy hole, you can drive fast, you can drive slow. The car goes nowhere. And unfortunately, that's where we are. So the whole business of how do we reverse this trend, it has nothing to do with revoking. Even if you revoke, or even if SRO 39 of 225 is cast aside like the plague, the mindset is still there. The mindset of defeating the forces of democracy remain like a cancer. And hence you have to deal with the root of the problem. Otherwise, we will go nowhere. Otherwise, you might start sending our children to learn a second language. And I think we all know what language that is. I don't know whether it's Spanish. Somebody told me the word Fanchu is Spanish, but I don't know. I will have to check YouTube. But Dominicans have to understand that this is a serious existential threat to the democracy that we know as we know it. It is done in your face. It is done with no shame, as we would say. It is done blatantly. And the displays of wealth is so vulgar that you could cut it with a knife. Nobody tries to hide these days. Whether you're at the bottom of the pit or your brain is in the bottom, it's the same type of phenomenon. A bold-faced arrogance, which unfortunately is not diminished by the illegality of the proposals being made. And hence we stand and we have to speak to this issue boldly and without fear. And unfortunately, justice delayed, unfortunately, has become a thing in Dominica, which we should avoid taking advantage, we should avoid taking for granted. Many of these things have to be challenged or should be challenged. And yes, I understand that funds are limited. Yes, I understand that certain lawyers, they're afraid of paying a certain price. But on the other hand, I stand comforted by the fact that there are quite a few lawyers in Dominica who've spoken out against what's happening. They've taken stands which are unpopular. But sometimes it is the stand that you take on the side of what is righteousness and just that will be redemptive and that will inspire people, as opposed to simply towing the line and simply taking comfort in the much repeated phrase, oh, they would do the same thing. That is a cop-out. That is a surrender. And many persons who take that view, quite frankly, they take so in a very cynical fashion, because if you look deep enough, you will see that they too are the beneficiaries of inequity and corruption in Dominica. So let us reinforce ourselves to stand against this and to say enough is enough. In America, last Saturday, 7 million people in America, the greatest assemblage of Americans protesting the phenomenon of the President of the United States trying to be coronated as a king. We should be guided by these things. And even as we speak, there are persons from America in the diaspora who will be coming to Dominica, and they will see nothing wrong. Although the very same phenomenon exists in Dominica as it exists in the United States. Let us open our eyes and let us see clearly now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Andre. Very well said indeed. I don't know whether Wayne James is with us at this time. I don't see his video. Okay, so Wayne, you're with us. I believe Sherwin is still trying to assist Hillary to log in. He will very likely succeed soon. But Wayne, let me come to you. I mean, you are a member of the Electoral Commission. We have heard your voice on several occasions trying to assist in getting the right thing done. Tell us, what is the current situation from your perspective? And maybe you might want to say a word about Julius Timothy before you do that.
Mr. Sheridan Gregor, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Wayne.
I want to say thanks for the invitation to be on this program for my very first time. I believe tonight it is a historic night for us here on this panel. I want to say good evening to my esteemed panelists. I am Dr. Irvin Andre, Honorable Senator Delbert Paris, my colleague Hillary Shillingford, my good brother and friend Lambert in the studio, and Sherwin. And I want to say good evening to my entire family and Dominicans here at home and Dominicans overseas. I want to wish all Dominicans happy independence. I have seen a lot of them here. They have come to enjoy. Mr. G, you would agree, something that you were part of initially and which is standing very strong. So I want to say to you, sir, I salute you for being part of the founding members of the World Creole Music Festival.
Thank you so much for that.
Mr. G, I just want to say a few words to the family, the wife and children and the entire family of Mr. Julius Timothy. It's a gentleman I got to know during the time of his appointment as the Minister of Finance under the United Workers' Party administration. I was indeed privileged to have worked alongside him because of the department that I worked in at the time, which was the special branch, so that when the Prime Minister would not be in, most of the time, Julius Timothy would have acted Prime Minister. One of the things I really admired about him is his humility. Mr. Timothy was somebody who, whenever he was acting, I was always happy to be part of his detail. And to his wife and his kids and the other members of his family, on behalf of my family and myself, we want to extend our deepest sympathies to them and tell them that the good Lord never give us more than we can bear. I know that Mr. Timothy has been suffering for a while, and God knows best. So I wish his family strength in these times, because I understand what death brings to a family. And losing a man like Mr. Timothy from the family, I understand what it means to them. Having said that, Mr. G, Senator Paris is here on this program, and Senator Paris is part of the legislation of Dominica. He is part of the lawmaking of the country as we speak. And I hope we'll give him enough time to explain to the people of Dominica. As a member of the Electoral Commission, we are the ones that we are responsible for the management of the electoral process in the country. We are responsible for registration of electors and the overall management. That is the mandate that we have. And as I've always said before, as a member of the Electoral Commission, once I'm satisfied that the work that we have done, it is setting a level playing field for whoever wants to participate in the electoral process in Dominica. Once I'm convinced, I'm satisfied that that is done, and an election is called, and the people of Dominica decides who they want to be the government for that period of time, I will be one of the first persons to call and congratulate these individuals. But if that is not done, Mr. Sheridan Gregoire, I don't think that my conscience would allow me to do such. And where we are now, Mr. Gregoire, we are at a very sad point in this country. And after serving as a member of the Electoral Commission for over these years, and I want to publicly again thank Mr. Lennox Linton for giving me the initial opportunity to serve as a member of the Electoral Commission. It was not something easy because I could not have made that decision on my own. So my family had to be involved, because once you get into those positions, you understand you're now in public life. But he gave me that opportunity, and I really have no regrets. I have learned a lot. And more so, I was very privileged to have worked alongside Sir Dennis Byron and Dr. Piraro, who were the initiators of this whole reform. We spent hours, we spent days, we spent months dealing with the electoral reform laws. After this exercise was done, it was sent to the administration. And then the administration sent draft legislations to the commission. And it's 3 pieces of legislation. It is the Registration of Electors Act, it is the House of Assembly Elections Act, and it is the Electoral Commission Act. The Electoral Commission Act is a brand new piece of legislation that has never existed before in Dominica. And I want to publicly say I'm very happy for that piece of legislation. But it was very sad when I read the draft legislations that was sent to us from the work that we had done with Sir Dennis Byron and what the government was proposing. It was very sad. And I want to say publicly that this should never happen again in the history of Dominica, where you engage with professionals. Sir Dennis Byron is known not only regionally, but internationally in his field. He brought on Dr. Beverly Piraro because she is a draft specialist. And when you engage persons like that, and they have done the work, and they have submitted to you, I just believe out of respect, you should at least pay some gratitude to them. And for me, Mr. G, this is something that is very painful for me, to see how the administration end up butchering the work of Sir Dennis Byron and Dr. Piraro, and by extension, the Electoral Commission, because we spent time. Civil societies was engaged, political parties was engaged. It's a lot that went into that work. And for where we are now, Mr. G, what is on everybody's mind now, it's about confirmation. And I want to put on the record this evening that if confirmation does not have the same effect as registration, the Electoral Commission has no legal authority to be engaged in this. No legal authority to be engaged in this. However, we are now asking persons who are on the voters list from May to go to centers and get themselves confirmed. But they are not actually confirming. I want them to understand that they are not confirming. What they're doing, they are applying for confirmation. Because after you have gone to these centers and the information has been collated, it has to take a process before you get confirmed and before you can get a voter's ID card. So I don't want anybody who has been to those centers listening to us this evening to believe that tomorrow they're going to get a voter's ID card. That is not going to happen. But Mr. G, this confirmation process, we had an SRNO 27, and the SRNO 27 stipulated the requirements, what one had to present when they get to these centers. And quickly, I just want to say what was in that SRNO 27 was, one, a government issued ID. It could either be a passport, a driver's license, or social security. The commission of which I am part of, we then, because we have the authority in law to make regulations, we decided to strengthen that, because we understand that if you do a survey around Dominica, there's going to be a lot of individuals in this country who have been participating in the electoral process for 10, 15, 20 years, but they do not possess a driver's license, a passport, or a social security card. But we want them to continue in the process. So we decided that they could then produce a birth certificate accompanied by an affidavit of identity, signed and stamped by a notary public or justice of the peace. A ping pong size photograph, signed and stamped by a notary public or a justice of the peace. And we went further, Mr. G, that you have to be accompanied by somebody who is in your polling district. To me, I felt that this was given every Dominican, whether you are in Dominica, out of Dominica, but more specifically, Dominicans here, an equal opportunity, knowing that they have been participating in the electoral process for all of these years. You cannot implement a system now that is going to be, as you, I'm sure Mr. G, you remember this famous word, disenfranchising these individuals. And there's nothing else you're doing but just that, because for some reason, certain members of the Electoral Commission had a change of heart and a change of mind. And then we come to SRNO 39. And they decided that if you don't have a passport, you don't have a driver's license, and you don't have a social security card, you will not be able to apply for confirmation. And as such, your name will be off the voters list. Mr. G, I'm speaking about individuals who have been participating in the electoral process for 10, 15, 20 years. The marginal people in this country. But in the meantime, that this decision is being taken by members of the Electoral Commission, who the mandate is to ensure a level playing field, a free and fair election at any given time when an election is called. They are engaged in disenfranchising their brothers and sisters right here at home. And for me, Mr. G, this is very disappointing. It's very painful for me, I can tell you, because I never anticipated that we could have reached to this stage. But I want to say to Dominicans who is listening to me tonight, I do not know if they will ever hear my voice after tonight, because I do not know what the good Lord has in store for me. But I just want to tell them that after this evening program, they are going to decide their destiny. Hillary Shillingford and myself, as members of the Electoral Commission, we have been accused of divulging Electoral Commission business in public. But let me put it on the record this evening. I owe no one an apology for coming publicly to tell the people on whose behalf I'm working what is going on with their business. And anyone who is offended by this, I say to them, I'm sorry, but I will continue to inform and educate the people of Dominica in relation to their business. I have taken no oath of secrecy, and I do not know of anything that goes on at the Electoral Commission that the people of Dominica should not be informed of. And as such, Mr. G, I want to say to the people of Dominica that it is not over. Even after the period of confirmation, which initially the law gives us 12 months, but we can do an additional 3 months. I hope that we do not have to come to this, because I have seen a letter from the Honorable Senator Delbert Paris addressed to the Electoral Commission through the chairman. The chairman has furnished us with that letter. And I want Dominicans to get themselves informed. There's a press release from Senator Paris. And I do hope that after this evening, that the other members, the majority members on the Electoral Commission, will allow good sense to prevail and allow the people of Dominica, who must determine the type of government that governs them, allow them to continue doing that. Anything besides this should not be accepted by the people of Dominica. Mr. Sheridan Gregory, thank you very much for this opportunity at this time.
Thank you so much for these enlightening remarks. Wayne James, obviously a consummate member of this Electoral Commission, and we'll be coming back to you a little later on in the program to expand on some of this. But let me welcome Hillary Shillingford, who's with us now, and we'll come back to you in a moment, Hillary. But I want to go now to Senator Engineer and Senator Delbert Paris, a leading voice in electoral reform in Dominica. Senator Paris, Wayne James just told the nation that you wrote a letter to the chairman of the Electoral Commission. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about this, and maybe in your opening remarks, you might want to say a thing or two about Honorable Julius Timothy.
And Mr. G, as usual, thank you for, first of all, can you hear me okay?
I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Very nice. Thank you again for having me back on the Global View, this place that I like to be. I think the discussion here is more than just parlay, but an opportunity for us to expand on a number of national issues that affect Dominicans and to educate people on what's currently going on and how it affects our lives, and to empower people to make the decisions based on the information that they're gathering. Before we get into the meat of everything, as it relates to Mr. Julius Timothy, I didn't have the opportunity to know him personally, but there are a lot of people that I don't know personally that have impacted my life, and you can see their impact around the world and particularly in Dominica. It is without a doubt that Mr. Julius Timothy is one of those persons who has impacted the political and business landscape in Dominica, and it's someone that I have respect for. His legacy, what he leaves behind, and to his family, his wife, his children, other loved ones, I'd like to express my sincere sympathies to them and to wish them the best of courage during this challenging time. But most importantly, to encourage them to continue to carry on his legacy of servitude, of humanitarianism, and service to country. That's the legacy from my perspective I see him leaving behind, and it's inspiring for all of us. I think we can take the good from that and move forward with it and do the best that we can. Mr. G, Commissioner Wayne James just explained, and in a very chronologic sense, gave you a breakdown of where we are and what's happening. We're not going to go back to March 19th and looking at the 3 pieces of legislation, but we're going to focus here. I don't know how much time we have left, but we're going to focus here on the current issue. I'm not going to go over everything that Mr. James said as it relates to the 2 separate SRNOs. Mr. G, rightfully, Commissioner Wayne mentioned that I wrote a letter to the chairman of the commission, obviously for the deliberation, the respectful deliberation of the entire commission. In my position as a sitting parliamentarian, opposition senator, uniquely involved in the process that we're going through now, I felt it was my duty and a responsibility to the people of Dominica to advocate on their behalf outside of what was already done in Parliament, but more pointed and directly to the Commission, who has the powers as it stands now and who has been demonstrating their power to make regulations which should be for the enactment or the fulfillment of the provisions of the law. And in short, Mr. G, you may have heard or seen the press release that I put out today. My letter to the commissioner, to the chairman of the commission, was yesterday. It's more than 24 hours now. I decided to put out the press release today because advocacy, like Mr. James was just mentioning, on the behalf of people shouldn't be a secret. People should know what you're advocating on their behalf for. Mr. G, the very humble and respectful request that I have of the commission is for the revocation of SRNO 39. Simply because it's implementing provisions now that disenfranchises people. That word is a very familiar word. It was bastardized during the consultation period and used out of context at many times. But this is real disenfranchisement, Mr. G. Why is that so? Because what the SRNO seeks to do does not do what the commission, and the chairman was on the radio a few days ago, what it purports to do. What it does, in turn, maybe unintendedly or unintentionally, is bar hundreds, if not thousands, of people from their constitutional right to participate in the electoral process simply because, for some reason now, the Electoral Commission decides to change and to implement more restrictive requirements for participating or applying for confirmation, stating now that you have to have a passport, a valid passport, or a driver's license, or a social security card. Removing the provisions, the very inclusive provisions that they themselves recognize, but Mr. G, more so, that the parliament recognized was important. And I'll get to the part where we elaborate on the parliament, the highest legislative body on island, recognizing that an affidavit of identity endorsed by a justice of peace or notary public, confirming an eligible voter, confirming that individual's identity, a passport-size photograph, a birth paper, and a witness, removing that requirement that is all-encompassing and allows people who are elderly, who are disabled, who have literacy issues, mobility issues, and the likes, people of limited means, who have the right to participate in the electoral process, Mr. G, because participating in the electoral process is not for a certain group of people. It is for citizens who are eligible to vote. The Constitution and our laws makes provisions for people who are disabled to vote. But it doesn't require them to have a passport. It doesn't require them to be able to read and write. It doesn't require them to be able to drive. It doesn't say that for you to vote, you have to be a contributing member to the Social Security scheme that we have in Dominica. It says that you have to be Dominican. You have to be a Commonwealth citizen. Section 33 of the Constitution. It is stating now that people, if you do not have the means to acquire a passport or driver's license or social security card, there's a chance that you will not be able to confirm your registration, whether or not your name already appears on that register, whether or not you qualify or are eligible to vote. It says that if you do not have these, you won't be able to register. And Mr. G, that is unfair. And it's on that basis I wrote to the chairman, respectfully asking him for his consideration and the consideration of the Electoral Commission to revoke SRNO 39. Because it doesn't serve any beneficial purpose, but what it does in turn is serve the purpose to disenfranchise poor people. Mr. G, in the last two parliamentary sittings, I made representation on that very issue. On the first one, where we spoke about, for the consideration of the parliament, suggested that even birth papers, the fee, the $20 fee that is required now to access a birth paper, I tabled to the parliament that maybe we should waive that fee for the entire period, so that all eligible voters can get it for free. It should be waived. And not only that, that we should be installing or appointing more justice of peace around the country, particularly in rural areas, because we do not have enough. For what reason, Mr. G? To facilitate the process of allowing more people to participate in their franchise, so that you'd have more justice of peace and you would not have lines. And people of limited means, limited accessibility can access their birth paper for free. To be able to go now to a confirmation center, enrollment center, and confirm their registration. And said, yes, regardless of my economic stature or my economic situation or where I live or my last name or whether I've traveled or not or whether I can read and write as well as you, I deserve to vote. And I want to vote. I want to participate in that because I understand that the franchise and the people that we put to govern our country, that affects my life too, even if I am disabled, even if I have limited means. And I have a right and I have a say in it. That's what I advocated for. Mr. G, interestingly, the leader of government agreed with me. He said that the waiver of the passport fee, the waiver of the birth certificate fee was something that was considered, and he even went as far as advocating for more justice of peace to make themselves available, to volunteer to be justice of peace around the country. So, Mr. G, that is a demonstration that the parliament agrees with ensuring that people across the board are able to exercise the franchise of participating in the electoral process. But the Electoral Commission, for some reason, does not agree and seeks now to change that. Mr. G, in Section 36 of the Registration of Electors Act, the commission is responsible for, or has the authority to make regulation and to give full effect of the provisions in the law, right? The Electoral Commission is not responsible for making laws. It's responsible for giving effect to the provisions of the laws that are passed in the parliament. Mr. G, what we're seeing in section, in SRNO 39 is a massive overreach of the Electoral Commission, where in its amendment to section 53.2, its amendment to 53.2a, it seeks not just to make regulation, but to change the parent law, to amend the provisions of the parent law at section 15.3. Now, we don't want to go into a section and subsection and section and subsection, but we'll explain, right? What it is doing is trying to create a differentiation between a Commonwealth citizen and a citizen of Dominica. And according to the Constitution at section 33, does not have that distinction. But, Mr. G, in this Registration of Electors Act, the Registration of Electors Act that I voted for on the 19th of March, at section 15.3, does not have that distinction either. Section 15.3 that collaborates with section 14, that says a Commonwealth citizen has to meet a certain residency criteria to remain on the register of voters that will be produced in Dominica. At section 53, at regulation 53.2a, it says that a registering officer can refuse a confirmation, an application for confirmation, if they can determine, if they are not satisfied that this particular Commonwealth citizen does not meet the residency criteria. And what this is a law that was passed on March 19th that I agree with. What we're having now is that the Electoral Commission is seeking to change that, to create a distinction against the provisions of the Constitution and against the provisions of the Registration of Electors Act that was recently passed. And Mr. G, that is wrong. And on these grounds, my request, and the request that should be of all of us, is that this is revoked. It is not right. Something is wrong with it. And I heard Dr. Andre. I don't often disagree with Dr. Andre, but Dr. Andre mentioned in his interlude that the revocation of this act of this SRNO may not change much. It will change a lot because we can reinstate the previous provisions. As a matter of fact, Mr. G, I will go so far as to tell you that Regulation 8, this is not to remove the powers or try to be adverse to the powers given to the Electoral Commission at Section 36 of the Registration of Electors Act, but it's at Regulation 8. Sir Byron The drafters, even the commission at the time, everyone that put this draft together, the government, the parliament decided, and they put in place a regulation at Regulation 8, where we see that you have the ability, in the regulation that was passed on March 19th, that you have the ability, if you do not have any government issued identification, that the registering officer will accept from you a affidavit of identity signed by a justice of peace or a notary public, 2 passport size photographs that are also notarized, and a birth certificate. This wasn't the work of the commission. This was the work of the framers of the law. This was passed in the parliament. This is what we sat and deliberated over and found that it was good. Now in Regulation 39, so SRNO 39, the commission is seeking to change that against the spirit and the legislation of the law. To suit what purpose? I am still yet to understand, because there's no material benefit to it, and it doesn't change anything fundamentally positive. But what it does is disenfranchise for poor people, put people in a disadvantage, and create obstacles and barriers to them that should not be there. They have a right to vote. Because the gentleman lives in a house where he doesn't have much means, and he doesn't have a passport, but he knows that Sheridan Gregoire is a good man. He knows that Sheridan Gregoire likes to help people and does carry people to church, and on Sunday afternoon and community day of service, Mr. G will come around. He cannot read and write, Mr. G, but he knows that Sheridan is a good man and he like him and he want to vote for him in the election. You're telling that man that may not have a need for a passport, that is unable to work because of a disability, didn't get to read and write, and hasn't spent a lot of time in structured employment, so he may not have a social security card. You're telling me that man should find a way to get one of those things. He doesn't have a vehicle, so he's not interested in driving. That's why you have a license. He doesn't have. So you're telling me that regardless of if the Justice of Peace knows that man for 40 years, and if his name already exists on the register, you're telling me that he cannot confirm his registration because you don't think that people without passports, driver's license, and social security card have the right to participate, and you say that the commission, we are now raising the bar and the standard of identification for people, and that is a separate conversation, but that's not the job of the Electoral Commission. The job of the Electoral Commission is to give effect to the provisions of the law, not to change them through sleight of hand regulations, but to give effect to what the framers, to the spirit of what the framers intended to do. Not change it to suit any nefarious purposes. And that is why it must be revoked, Mr. J. It has to be revoked. What happens to a young person that is 18 years now? Because they are changing Regulation 8 as well, you know. What happens to a young person that is, they just turned 18 and they want to participate in the electoral process? You're telling me that young person, if they don't yet have a passport, they have to get one. If they don't, they must have a driver's license, whether or not they're interested in driving or they have the ability to drive. They're not yet employed. They don't have a social security card. You're telling me that they have to get one of those in order for them to even be registered? That's not the intention of the Constitution, Mr. G. And that is not the intention of the recently passed legislation. And what the Electoral Commission is doing is wrong. It is unfair, it is unjust, and the regulation must be revoked. And enough public pressure must be put on the Electoral Commission to reverse it, because Regulation 20, SRNO 27 dealt with it. Commissioner Wayne James just explained. It reflected the provisions of the law. It reflected the provisions, an all-inclusive sentiment that allowed for everybody, regardless of your social status or your social standing, to participate in the electoral process. Constitutional right given to citizens. What could have influenced the commission to want to change it now? I don't know, but the commission cannot be a law unto themselves. And they cannot be allowed to get away with implementing a regulation that seeks to change the provisions of the parent law, or that seeks to disenfranchise people who are eligible to participate in the electoral process. Mr. G, that is my advocacy. I've advocated for that in the parliament. I've advocated for that outside. My advocacy will continue. We cannot build a democracy that hurts or disenfranchises the same people that it is aimed to protect. After World War II, Mr. G, the entire world moved away from authoritarianism and dictatorships. And bring it closer home in the Caribbean, we moved away, we started moving, we moved towards decolonization and independence. Dominica was one of those countries. The thought leaders at the time globally felt that we had to start moving towards the approval of the governed and towards human rights and all-inclusive behavior, and particularly the separation of powers. We cannot be implementing laws and putting regulation to laws now that seems to regress and bring us closer to that time after we should have grown. What the Electoral Commission is doing is regressive, it is separatist, it is disenfranchising, and it does not give effect to the spirit of the law as it relates to protecting human rights and getting the approval of the governed. Thank you, Mr. G, for the opportunity. I don't know how much more time we have, but it's good to be able to participate in this conversation and to bring some light and to educate people on what is going on. I think more of this should be happening. More of that kind of conversation should be going on, because our people need to know and they need to be informed. I'm very proud to be sitting here together with Hillary Shillingford and Wayne James on this. You have a call, Mr. G. Thank you.
Yes, we will come back to you a little bit later, Del. But Lambi, you want to take this call?
Yes. Caller, please go ahead. It's your opportunity now.
It looks like we've lost the caller. All right, so the caller will call back, and you'll just make us a signal to take the call when he calls back, Lambi. But what I wanted to remark on is that in your presentation, Delbert, obviously, Lambi, you want to take a call?
Yes, the caller is calling back now. Caller, please go ahead. Not hearing anything.
Okay, so keep trying to fix it. Maybe there's a technical issue there. You try to sort it out. But Delbert, and as I go to Hillary Shillingford, and Hillary, I hope you can unmute your mic so that you can make your presentation. I just wanted to remark on your presentation, Delbert, that you seem to be, this letter you wrote to the chairman of the Electoral Commission seem to be pointing out the fact that it is the SRO that was passed, that they put in there, is disenfranchising a lot of young people who probably just turned 18 and want to participate in the voting electoral process, and disenfranchising a lot of poor people in Dominica who cannot afford to have a passport or a driver's license, or do not have a need for a social security card, and therefore they are going against the law that was passed in the parliament, which allowed people to use a birth certificate and so on, with the justice of the peace and certifying the thing and so on, that this is a true image and likeness of that person. So, I mean, this is really commendable. And Hillary, we've been hearing, for example, we've heard your voice many times on the radio, yourself and Wayne James. I mean, we commend you for that. But I mean, We've been hearing on the radio today, yesterday, some people seem to have had an experience going to some of these venues where these enrollment officers accepting applications for reconfirmation. That first of all, that some of these venues in Labour Party offices or something like that. I don't know whether that is true, and that some of these people who are in fact enrollment officers are in fact supporters of the party. I don't know what regulation there is to monitor these venues to ensure that there is transparency and independence in this. Your thoughts, Hillary, on where we are in this now? I mean, you've been speaking about this for so long now.
Good evening, Mr. G. Thanks for having me. Good evening to your panelists, esteemed panelists. And I must say that I feel honored to be among such esteemed gentlemen. I'm sorry I missed most of the program because I could not get in. I had to use somebody else's device to get in because, as your technician said, my Zoom would fight against the link. But let's go straight into it, Mr. G. I didn't hear Wayne James, but I heard the entire presentation of Senator Parris. Well said, well done, Senator Parris. I also want to inform you that Wayne James and I articulated that point and the movement against that SRO, that I wonder if any lawyer in Roseau would articulate it deeper and stronger than we did. And one might say, what does he think he's a lawyer? That's not what I'm trying to say. Because even the great Sir Dennis Byron made that point, that nobody could articulate a particular point the way that Wayne James and I articulated it when Dennis Byron was working on the same reform with us. So I'm just saying that to say, we fought against that SRO and made it clear that it would be, and my exact words were, your famous phrase or word, disenfranchisement. It was being abused. And when James can tell you, like Parris said, it was said at our meeting. Okay, but I don't want to stay on that since Parris has dealt with it and dealt with it competently. But it is clear that the government is on a drive to disenfranchise and to get an unfair advantage using the largest of cash, the state funds, rather, to give their supporters ID, whether passport, social security card, whether on the NAP, or whether just creating positions for them. And when they felt that they were fully satisfied, 1 week, about a week before confirmation started, while our ad was still on, 2 days after the vote for the SRO, the ad was still going on, telling Dominicans that you can use your picture, your birth certificate, and your affidavit from a justice of peace. So while they passed the SRO, 2 days later, they still had the ad. That's how dishonest this commission has been with the people of Dominica. And I listened to a young man, well, a man today, giving his testimony about going into the polling station, not polling station, but the confirmation center. And I cannot imagine the CEO, the chief elections officer, together with the chairman, because they were the ones going out, would use a Labour Party office as a confirmation center. I called 2 people down there, and I was told that it's true. I mean, these people have to be sick. How could you do something like that? You go in a party headquarters to do confirmation. This is absolutely wrong. And here goes the man. He's saying he know the people very well. They know him very well. They are his friends, and they joked about many things. With his ID, they put wrong spelling of his name. Instead of Stephen, they put Steven. His surname is George. They put Stedman or whatever they put. With his ID. Then his sex is a man. They put female. This is not coincidental. This is not a mistake. You cannot make free mistakes. This is a strategy that may be used all around the country. And it is not incompetence. While there may be some incompetence, it is a strategy. So when these people come to vote, they cannot vote. Because your name is not Stephen Stedman. You are Stephen George. But you think you confirm. If you don't check the list ever again, then you shut out. You cannot vote. So I'm saying, and I'm asking Wayne James on your panel here today, that at our next meeting, that is something that we should push to re-examine everybody that was confirmed in that particular confirmation center. If it is one incompetence, then we deserve to go over everything they did. If it is two dishonesty, then we still deserve to go there. So I'm saying, even before we start, things are even worse than they were. In the past, you would have never heard of a registering officer doing that kind of garbage. So men have things at stake, and they will do anything to stay in power. So I just want to urge Dominicans to be on their guard. Sheridan, like you said, I've been speaking over and over all the time. My friend Wayne James, if you see Wayne James at a meeting, I mean, he puts his heart and everything into it. Sorry. But let me just tell you, I want to lay the blame of everything that is happening on Dominicans. I don't know how you all look at it on the panel. If Dominicans stood up against this administration, for the number of times they were called upon, and from everything that they can see and hearing that they are trying to block them. When you have an old person in the house, 70, 80, 90 years, they've been voting all their life. And here it is, you're telling them, if they don't have a government ID, they cannot vote again. And you saying to them, while you're saying to them they cannot vote because you block them, the government actually blocked them using their free musketeers, their free passport sellers, who has to guide or guard or protect their millions. You're blocking these people from voting. And you're making it easy for somebody in the diaspora to be passing on a tourist ship and just jump off the ship, come in, confirm, and leave the next hour. And the person that stayed here to build the country, pay their taxes, build the roads, you're telling them, after you create the environment to make them poor, 25 years of poverty, meet it down on Dominicans, and you're telling them, if they cannot buy a passport, or get a license, or do some forged document to get a social security card, they will never be able to vote in Dominica again because they cannot reconfirm. I'm saying to Dominicans, had we stood up even on the last demonstration, on the 19th, where a number of people got arrested. If Dominicans came out in full force, the government would have no choice but to give the people real reform. Real reform. So, Mr. G, I just want to tell Dominicans, while we cannot give up the fight, but it is them. When you have bullies fighting against you, will use anything to destroy you, it's only Dominicans themselves that can stand up and take their country back. No other way to do it, Mr. G. Because I had discussions with them at the highest level. And while they will agree with everything you say, but everybody got in their legacy. I want to single out Duncan Stu. I want to single him out. His actions at the commission is a betrayal to Dominica. Because if two commissioners vote, you always never have a position. You always never vote. And always after the two commissioners vote, you forever voting with them on basic things that any school child would say, this is not fair to our country. You voting with them. All free men are people I get along perfectly well with. And I knew them for many, many years before coming on the commission. But I couldn't imagine people could treat their country so bad that they don't mind destroying the democratic fabric of their country for a few dollars. It is sad. Mr. G, elections in Dominica, I kept saying it, and I said it when the CEO and the chairman were on Matt's program. The commission was not ready, and the commission still is not ready. The commission is not ready for confirmation. We're still setting up our system. They talk some garbage about front end and back end. The commission has never been ready. But when you put parrots to go and speak, they'll just say what you tell them to say. We had a competent Ian and Tony. Competent in legal work, competent in IT, competent in management. Everywhere you put Ian, he performed. Dennis considered Ian as his son, so Dennis Byron, because Ian never failed him. At the commission, Alec Lawrence, Lennox Lawrence, Wayne James, Duncan Stowe, they all together with me said there's nobody in Dominica that would be more competent than Ian Anthony to deal with electoral laws. Senior Counsel said that nobody would be more competent than him. When James was proud of his partner, immediately I told him, when James, don't be too proud. That is a sign that they're going to ask him. Once you hear those free musketeers decide they're going to support, give him all that praise, I don't trust them. So said, so done. He was too honest, too competent, and he stood up for what he believed. He demanded that everywhere there was the minister child, that should go. And Ian never cared as to whether they don't reappoint him, they don't change the age or move whatever. As far as he was concerned, he's a professional. And I pray that one day, Dominica will have more men like Ian and Tony. I want to urge Dominicans, we still have a chance. But I can tell Senator Paris, you can hold your breath on it, but I guarantee you that one you'll not see. These are not ordinary men. These are guys, they bent on destroying. They bent on destroying the fabric of our democracy. And anything that would deter them from holding on to their power, they'll fight it tooth and nail. They will stand like, some of them would stand like, you can laugh at them if you want for what they're saying that no lawyer that sits in a class could never support that. They don't care. They would. So we are not in ordinary times or dealing with ordinary men. There's a bigger picture. But Mr. G, before I go, I want to urge you or ask something of you. First of all, it would have been nice to have the leader of the biggest opposition party, Thompson Fontaine. It would have been nice to have him here tonight. However, I urge you, Mr. G, together with Thompson Fontaine, maybe Lennox Linton, all the leaders of the parties, Paris, whoever, to quickly or as soon as possible, maybe create a radio fund. Because these bullies are not going to back down. Create a radio fund to assist the people who cannot afford to have an ID. We don't have to dub it opposition members, anybody. Because they're going to say, talk about bribery and treating, but anybody. Because we cannot allow these guys to equip all their people with ID and the other people, some are left without. It cannot be fair. And something, somehow, need to be done, my brother. I don't know. Because at the end of the day, I don't want that to explode. But I don't know how people will take it when they go to vote. After voting so many times, to tell them they cannot vote. That might create some problems in Dominica. I know RSS is always at the reach of the Prime Minister. But it cannot be fair to allow some people to be able to confirm and some not to confirm. And we talk about the dictatorship that is creeping, Mr. G. I want to urge all Dominicans to use their influence on all the people who have influence within the opposition parties. That we may forget party, forget differences, forget the vindictive politics, forget the tribalistic politics, and come together as a united force. You know, I remember Julius Timothy before he died. May he still rest in peace. I extended sympathies to his family already on Mat today, or yesterday, sorry. Julius Timothy had a keen interest in working with the opposition before he last fell ill. I wonder what some people would say if they would say, don't bring him in. I'm saying to the opposition that we are not in a position to decide we want that, we don't want that. We must have an open door policy to fight against these dictators, to fight against the tyrants who have been raping our country. So I want to urge now quickly to motivate voters. We must get all hands on deck. And if Joseph Isaac decides he wants to come back home, he must be welcome home. If Lauren Bannis Joshua Francis. Anybody who wants to come back home, opposition must have an open door policy. Stop the hate politics. And let's go past just reform dictatorship and unite as one force. And if that cannot be done, I would urge the leaders in this country to come together to fight against that dictator. Thank you, Mr. J.
And thanks a lot, Hillary. Very well said. Lambi, you want to take a call?
Yes, someone is waiting there. Let's see. Caller, please go ahead.
Blessings, gentlemen. Blessings to you all, and thanks for the efforts. Thanks for the service. Thanks for the sacrifice.
Blessings to you.
What is happening? There is a word I created or modified. Miscalculation. A miscalculation is a genuine mistake. You miss the mark accidentally. When you do something intentionally, like a sabotage, is a miscalculation. And what is happening in Dominica, it is sabotage, corruption, criminality. Because if there is a law, and there is a law that governs the Constitution, which it was implemented, that certain measures should have taken place, and it was implemented in the absence of the whole procedure that had that matter implemented, or that requirement, like the birth certificate, in the absence of the process that had it implemented, how can it be eliminated? How can it be gotten rid of? And Duncan Stowe is making it, well, it happened like a joke. And Hillary, as a commissioner, is not supposed to call and deal with commission matters on the air. And Duncan Stone, the chief elections officer, and some other member, whatever she is, they're on the radio dealing with matters of the commission, which is not private or secret. What manner of criminality this commission is driven by? And I said it the day they were on the radio with Matt, where I said that it was in its initial stages, from the beginning, it was already corrupt and contaminated, because you have 3 passport sellers on the behalf of government operating on the commission as members. That is a conflict of interest. Are they going to muddy the waters for the government? So it is so sad. So there are 2 processes. I think it's one, reconfirmation, that is to confirm who is Labour and who is not Labour. That's reconfirmation. Could it be the computers are programmed? Did they come from China? Is their password? So if it is mentioned, unknowing to those marionettes they put there, because I believe the ventriloquist projecting the voices and the actions in this marionette within the offices where they are doing the so-called the reconfirmation and the why is the word again? A word I created, they have a re-fermentation. There is a reconfirmation and a re-fermentation. Check the word fermentation. So there are various processes that comes out of the re-fermentation that is not palatable, but people keep ingesting. They're chewing it up. They're gobbling it up. It's a whole dirty process. And I believe the computers are programmed automatically to change your sex because there might be a password. And they may give it to them. These marionettes, unknowing to them, when it is spoken in the engagement with the people that are coming to reconfirm where they are, labor or workers, then automatically the computer is triggered to do all its foolishness. Or if it's not that, they have all the people, they issue with their IDs and they have them reconfirm or the word I just used, and guess what? They're waiting for us to make fools of ourselves. We're going right now, maybe busy. They get rid of birth paper, go and get passport, go and get other IDs, social security card and driver's license. And all of a sudden, time up, the God and the goddess of Dominica decide they want election. And in conclusion, Nothing changes without a revolution. All those who afraid of the inevitable transition, they will just sit down as cowards, talking about peace, peace, peace. If only one piece of the tangible, go to scare it, the billions they steal. Peace, 90% or 80% of it is intangible. The P-E-A-C-E, how they spelling it there, the peace in the absence of war. But even in war, there is peace, and war is fought to guarantee peace, and to prepare for peace. For war is a form of peace. So whatever peace are you talking about, peaceful protest, peaceful this, peace, and every time all you stand up is revolution, is violence, it's framing all you up, and all you sit down there talking about peace. Boss, drastic measures call for drastic actions, and all of you that the gentlemen and sit down and talk. You have criminals there, they have told all you what they're made of. It's violence, revolution, lawlessness, and they say it, no law, not even the Constitution, go to hell. And we sit down there talking, my brother. I do not mean all you on the air there. Dr. Andre and everybody, blessings to all you. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And before I go over to Dr. Andre, I just wanted you to give the numbers out to the public, so if people are interested in making a call, could do so.
The numbers are as follow: 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257. Those are all local numbers. And the international or overseas number is as follows: 305-432-9624. Let me run those one more time. Local numbers: 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257. The overseas or international number: 305-432-9624. Back to you, Mr. G.
All right. So, Dr. Andre, I mean, you've heard Wayne James, you've heard Hillary Shillingford, and you heard Delbert Paris, Senator Delbert Paris. I mean, of all the things that you've heard, and all the testimony that we've heard here tonight, I mean, with all the machinations that seem to be going on, what do you think is the end game? You know, I mean, we raised the question of Section 33. I mean, the question of residency. I mean, where does that fit into all of this?
Well, bear in mind that part of the reason for the legislation which were enacted in March of 2025 was to neutralize this residency component which helped determine eligibility to vote. But bear in mind one thing, and I stand by my proposition that even if we get rid of SRO 39 of 2025, that will not change the mindset or the landscape. I stand by that. Let me refresh your memory. When the legislation was passed in March 2025, some of the government functionaries says, well, this is not the final thing. We may pass regulations to change it, to refine it. And many of us naively took solace from that pronouncement. And we have seen now what the functionaries or those who seek to perpetuate dictatorial rule in Dominica, what they've done through our SRO 39 of 2025. They have continued the evisceration or the destruction of the rights of many people to vote. But the question is, what did we expect when those pieces of legislation were enacted in March of 2025? What did we expect? What? Did we expect that these were born-again pagans who saw the light and who were ready to make change in the interest of democracy and free and fair elections? Did we seriously believe that that would happen? If we seriously believe that, then obviously we've been willfully blind. The intent has been clear. expressed as way back as 2008. The folks have no interest in free and fair elections. This should come as no surprise. What do we expect, as Hillary said so eloquently, from passport sellers? What, you think they're going to cut their financial neck? Of course not. They will enact regulations to perpetuate the rule or the incumbent in government as we speak.
Dr. Andre, can we take a call?
Caller, please go ahead with your call.
Yes, my friend, I'm convinced, and I will tell you guys again, 1, 2, 3 times, 4 times, Dominica is a socialist country, communist country. I was hoping that they would send a bunch of the RFS officers over to Venezuela. Why don't they send them over there? It would be a very good game. You see, they send them on the 4 unarmed Dominicans. Send them to Venezuela. Let Jared go there. Let his wife go there. Yes. What a bunch of thieves and idiots we have running that country. These guys, any other civilized country, any real country, these guys would have been arrested and in jail already. Thank you.
And thanks a lot for that. Dr. Andre, you want to continue?
Yes, so my point is very simple. What passes as governance in Dominica as we speak has manifested its intentions decades ago. Well, at least 20 years ago. What more evidence do we need? So we should be moving past beyond disgusted because we expect nothing better. Ask Wayne James, ask Hillary. These folks have disclosed their true colors for a long time. And yet we continue expecting change. We continue believing these folk will change their minds or change the mindset or forget about their pockets. But we become worse as a society as this type of attitude towards governance continues unabated. That has to change. We have to be more realistic. We have to be more resolute. We have to be more determined in ensuring that we protect what is in essence the very core of our livelihood as a nation. Let's face it, who is becoming wealthy in Dominica? Let's face it, who are concessions being given to? Let's face it, the cost of electricity has increased under who? Not a foreign entity, but under government control. Let's face it, who has been given the ability or the right to run the geothermal industry in Dominica? A foreign entity, for God's sakes, with guaranteed profits for 30 years. And the alleged $100 million of passport money that has been used to build up that industry, wasted. This is what we've been living with. Public Works Department, businesses over 100 gone. Because the focus is not to create wealth for Dominicans, but the focus is to create wealth for a filthy few and the foreigners who pay kickbacks. This is the epitaph of Dominica as we speak. And we have to get real. We have to understand this.
Yeah, can we take a call, Dr. Andre?
Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, there is a request I want to make, and I have no authority. I'm not in a position to go to the State Department. I have a thing saying whether is a consistent sequence of events, coincidence is absent. For in the laws of coincidence, there is no consistency. We are a member of ALBA, Roosevelt Skerrit. Now is the time for you to defend Venezuela. And coincidentally, we got how many pounds of cocaine with no arrest it magically appear, and we got it and making a big thing. People who kidnapped Choksi, people who framed Lennox Linton, people who committed all manner of crimes, disappear millions. All of a sudden, they want us to believe that it's cocaine. Can they please request from the U.S. to come and get that cocaine? We want the U.S. to come and get that cocaine, these corrupted criminals. For us to prove it's cocaine, if it's not cement or coffee or pie fig or maybe flour or rice or sugar, whatever they have in those bills, I think that is staged. The U.S. is in Venezuela, and guess what? Blowing boats out of the waters. We want to show them how honest and astute we are. We want to show them no. So request the U.S. all that corruption there. I hope the U.S. makes some intervention in Dominica. You cannot tell me you're running those kind of schemes there. Have free passport salesmen to aid and abet in manipulating the outcome of elections, and we're just sitting there. We are talking. There is nobody to mobilize, to inspire, to organize, to do what we have to do to rise up against that. I am always saying, if a man preoccupies himself with comfort, with protection, and with what again? Security, there is no room for spiritual and mental enlightenment. There is a void. Stop being afraid. We should be like maybe white people, put the children on roller coasters and all kind of thing, break your arm, fall down. We were too protective. Now everything we are afraid. We need to fight in England, in Canada, in America, in Germany, everywhere people are fighting. In Dominica, we are talking. Thank you.
And thanks a lot for that. Nambi, you have another call?
Yes, caller, please go ahead.
Don't worry, Blessings. ICE will be watching the voters that are coming from the Bronx, Manhattan, or wherever they're coming from in America to vote for Skerrit. ICE will be watching them. And I think they'll be smart enough not to come down to vote because ICE have an eyes on them. Thank you.
And thanks a lot for that. If you don't have a call, Nambi, I would go over to Wayne James, if Wayne is with us, to make his closing remarks. We're really running out of time here now. And so if Wayne, if you're with us, could you make yourself available to have make your closing remarks?
Mr. G, as I make my closing remarks and my plea to Dominicans, I want to bring to the attention of this panel that the Electoral Commission has been engaged since the passage of these pieces of legislation in something very illegal, contrary to Section 17 of the Registration of Electors Act. What I'm speaking about? I'm speaking about Section 17, which deals with continuous registration. As I speak to you all this evening, instructions were given to registering officers all across Dominica, who in turn instructed the assistant registering officers that they must cease registration. What do I mean by that? Someone, a young person who has attained the age of 18 years in Dominica as I speak tonight, and who is interested in participating in the electoral process in Dominica, they cannot do that because of instructions given to registering officers and assistant registering officers all across Dominica. Mr. Sheridan Gregoire, I have written to the Electoral Commission as a member of the commission, and I've asked them, please, give me the legal authority that gave the commission that power that it has taken upon itself to stop registering people in Dominica. And I want to bring something that might shock all of you on this program tonight and Dominicans listening. And I pause because it is not only misleading, the information that I'm going to divulge now, coming from the Chief Elections Officer to enrollment officers and assistant enrollment officers that is engaged in the confirmation process. There is a form called Form 31 that has to be filled by everyone who presents themselves at those centers. And there's a section on that form, Mr. G, which requires one to put their current address. Mr. G, if I would ask you now, what is your current address? What would you say to me, Mr. G?
I would say my current address is in Canada.
Correct. The Chief Elections Officer has given those enrollment officers and assistant enrollment officers instruction to direct persons who are coming to these centers and to fill this form out, which must be signed by the individuals and the enrollment officer, that in the space of current address, that they must put the address that is on the voters list. This is not only misleading, but this is criminal. I want to warn, as a member of the Electoral Commission, I want to warn every enrollment officer and every assistant enrollment officer not to take these instructions. This has legal implications. They are offenses for falsifying this document, which could land you in jail. I share this with Dominicans to let them know what is going on as we speak. And as I end, the process that is going on right now, the commission is not ready for that process because this is a computerized system that we engage in. Technology. And that system is not yet completed. Yet we are busy doing foolishness, misleading, and even engaging in criminal acts. Again, I want to warn all of the enrollment officers and assistant enrollment officers. I'm a member of the Electoral Commission, and I can tell you all this evening, this has implications for you all if you all engage in this. So, Mr. G, I want to once again thank you for this opportunity. I want to say thanks to the panelists, Dr. Andre, Senator Paris, my colleague Hilary Shillingford, Lambert, Charles, and Sherwin. But I just want to send out this plea to the young people of Dominica. It is your time. Stand up and take your country back. Thank you very much, Mr. Sheldon Gregor.
And thank you so much, Wayne James, for these fine remarks. And Senator Delbert Paris, your turn for your closing remarks, but you on this panel, as Wayne is sending a message out to the youth, it's their time. You seem to be representing the youth. looks like it's your time. Your final words.
Thank you, Mr. G. Before we get to my time, the same information that Commissioner Wynne just disclosed was brought to my attention regarding the filling out of Form 31. And I want to, this is another reason that I supported this piece of legislation. The section on offenses and the penalties for offenses laid out from section 38 all the way to section 48 of the parent law, something that did not exist before. It is a crime to falsify these documents. Falsifying these documents has the potential to land you in jail. As someone trying to confirm their registration, as a registering officer, as an enrollment officer or assistant enrollment, anywhere you are in the system, even for the chief registering officer, there are penalties laid out for people involved in the system who commit offenses. They are very, very serious. It is not something that we should be taken for granted. This is not a joke. It is not something that we should take lightly. A system is put in place there. As flawed as our laws are very often and need upgrading and reforming, does not give us the right to break the law. We do not get the opportunity to break the law. And I want to say to everybody involved in the system, people who are going to confirm, please do that. Do not stay out of the system. Do not stay out of the process. Get involved in the process. You want to confirm and you want to confirm your registration on the register of electors, please go out and do it, but do it legally. Do not falsify any of the documents on your form. Do not falsify any of the documents, because you will be committing an offense that is you are liable to a summary conviction, $5,000, 9 months in jail, or both. That applies to registering and enrollment officers as well. The penalties for the chief registering officer are much higher than that. Listeners, ladies and gentlemen, friends, citizens, please do not take advice to break the law. Do not participate in breaking the law. Mr. G, we can get this right, We can get this right. The government serves the people of Dominica, and if the people decide, the government will do what the people ask. The power in people is stronger than the people in power, and we must get to the point where we can demonstrate that. That may mean and be interpreted as several different things. A lot of people have sacrificed and fought and died for us to have the privileges that we have now. We cannot pretend that we don't have those privileges, and we cannot pretend that the country that we are loaning from our children, that we do not need to give it to them in a useful state, that they can benefit and continue the legacy and the life that we have as citizens. Mr. G, it is our time. It is the time for young people. I am just one, but there are many of us. What needs to happen now is the space needs to be carved out, and more young people need to be encouraged to step out and to speak loud. We must behave, a lot of us behave as if young people are tokens, so we get to talk about them a lot and we tokenize them. You see, I have a young person there and a young person there, but we really are sometimes not well prepared to empower them, because empowering young people changes the status quo. Seniors start to feel uncomfortable when young people speak louder. It makes them feel uncomfortable, and they sometimes believe that they know a lot more, and probably they do, So it's not supposed to be one against the other, but there's supposed to be a collaborative effort where wisdom and speed, where experience and efficiency coupled together makes the system function. I think we can move towards getting that. Our young people are not disconnected, you know, they're just not motivated. It's not that they're not interested. If you engage with them, they're very knowledgeable. They know what's going on. They're not motivated because they can already see a couple steps ahead that what we're doing is not going to work. They see faster, they move faster, they live in fiber optics. So they understand things better than a lot of us can, because some of us still operate on dial-up, or young people are on 5G. It's quicker. Give them the space, give them the empowerment, encourage them to participate, and you'll see what happens. I'm with them, I'm for them. I don't speak always for them, but I speak together with them. And we will be here. We'll not let our country go to the dogs. We will stand up, and Dominica will survive. And we will have a legacy to be proud of, but it needs to start today, and it needs to start with your help. Thank you, Mr. G. I look forward to continue participating in this conversation.
Yes, certainly, Del. But I mean, what we've heard from you tonight is remarkable. And I don't know whether Hillary is back with us, because if you're back with us, we'd like to ask you to take the opportunity to make your closing remarks. If you could turn on your video.
Mr. G,
Yes.
I just came on about 1 minute ago.
Right.
Because my device has Zoom on it, I could not get onto your program. It's your technician who told me that was the problem from the start.
Okay.
So I used somebody else's device where I am, and the battery was low. It got cut off, and I just got back on.
Okay,
well,
excellent.
In closing, I just want to urge Dominicans to use every bit of energy in them to make sure they are determined at this time to go out there and confirm, go out there and register, come out and vote in large numbers. Bring all the forces together. United we stand, divided we fall. And unless we work together against this tyrant, there's no way we're going to make it. And I cannot afford to take another 5 years in opposition. Mr. G, we must understand as leaders, as people with influence, we must not betray our people. We must not, I don't use the word betray, maybe that's a strong word, but we must not fail them. We must use everything possible to give these people a chance to get out of opposition, to feel like their government is in power and there is a level playing field. Because the kind of reform we get in, honestly, I don't think is a level playing field. And no matter what we do, we'll not be getting a level playing field. So I want to urge all of us to come together and fight, go on, educate each other. Take the bull by the horn. Go out there and campaign heavily against that crooked dictator and ensure that we can move this country forward. Because no amount of reform, if we don't do the work, if we don't unite, if we don't come together, if we don't put all our differences aside, forget the hatred, forget the vindictiveness on all sides of the fence, and come together for the common good of Dominica. Because I am saying again, I am not going to spend another 5 years in opposition or running my big mouth, feeling that it's going to be a useless fight again. If we fight and we fight united, and we fall short, we can blame ourselves. But if we divide it and we enter into that fight, it's another indictment against us. And the people of Dominica will never forgive us, because it will appear that we always want to be in opposition. So, Mr. G, you've been doing everything you can do to promote democracy. Continue to do that. Paris, I urge you to continue to do whatever you have to do to move this country forward. Wayne James, I know that you've been doing your best together with me. Dr. Andre, well, you've been a fighter. And I don't know if there's anybody else on the panel, well, even our partner on the console.
Lambi.
Lambi, constantly working hard. So I want to ask Dominicans to question these politicians and their crookedness. When you see the commissioners that are giving you all this stress, that are misleading your country, tell them stop betraying their country. Ask them to please ease up my country. Take your money and leave. Give the country a break, let it breathe. That's my contribution.
And thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that, Hillary. Fine words there. Dr. Andre, you have the final word?
Let me commend all the panelists for what can only be described as sterling presentations. Very moving, very emotional, very heartfelt, very profound. And that is the type of passion, in my view, that has to be brought to the table when we discuss the very future of your country. And I think the peril faced by Dominica warrants that type of reaction, not some dispassionate university class presentation, but something which speaks or something which reflects the danger that we face as a nation. We, unfortunately, at no other junction in our history, has never faced an administration which is so relentless, determined, so unforgiving, so vindictive, so ruthless in its determination to maintain itself in power. We've never experienced that phenomenon in the past. If you look at our leaders, they had their shortcomings also, but not to the extent that is manifested as we speak. So that, quite frankly, it brings to the fore everything which all the panelists have spoken about, certainly Hillary Schillingford, that this is not a time to retreat in individual pursuits. This is not a time to grieve about personal hurts, personal slights, and that type of thing. This is the time to say, well, look, despite these differences, despite these nuances in opinion, there is one overarching goal, which is to preserve the nation of Dominica, to ensure that the fruits of Dominica are distributed among Dominicans, not given away to foreigners, not given away on platters, as if it's a wedding, not squandered, not frittered away, not using passport money to build hotels and then sell those hotels and keep the money, not ravaging the consolidated fund, but giving Dominica the hope that they deserve, the chance to take their rightful place in the community of nations, the chance to provide for their families scholarships, building enterprises, businesses for young and old, the chance to fulfill those deep senses in their bosoms that they can achieve just as any other island nation can achieve. So that goal, if it is not worth fighting for, then what is? What is? Do we become mere spectators in this country? Somebody has distributed a list of over 100 local indigenous businesses that have been run aground, not have closed, but they have been run aground because of certain policies, because of a certain type of vindictiveness, which we've never seen before. So we are fighting for the very soul and the future of Dominica. And I am not going to give you any epistle as to why it is so important that folks join hands and heads together. If you don't know that by instinct, then you know nothing. We have to be motivated by that song popular by Tom Jones, I who have nothing. But it should not mean that I will end up with nothing. It should mean I will end up with my inheritance. An inheritance fought for by our forefathers in the cane fields, by those other post-independence or pre-independence and post-independent fighters who thought that giving people a living wage was worth fighting for, giving them houses in which they could raise their children and send them to school, giving them certain opportunities, giving them the means to enrich themselves through agriculture. We have to resuscitate that spirit of enterprise, of desire, of hunger to achieve. We cannot allow it to be buried under an attitude of giving, of enabling a kind of sycophancy. That if you beg, if you go on bended knee, if you go on radio and castigate persons who have a different opinion, you will be lauded and you will be feted, and a fatted cow calf will be killed for your loyalty. Loyalty should not be the criterion on which people are offered jobs, on which they receive promotion, on which they are, quite frankly, given opportunities to excel. All should receive the same equal treatment. That is what we aspire to. And that is what has to motivate us. We cannot allow this kind of activity in governance bury our souls or extinguish those fires that should burn ever so brightly. And I take solace in the fact that there are many, there's hundreds, there's thousands of patriots who may not have the articulation of a Paris or a James or a Shillingford, but they still have the same inner yearning for what every other island or most other islands in the Eastern Caribbean have taken for granted. And so as I leave, I tell our compatriots that there is always hope as long as we're alive and well. And we should take life as a gift, because tomorrow you may get sad news that all is not well within the edifice of your body. So we must expand and make every day count, because the fight is very important. It involves our very survival as individuals and as nations. And on that note, I say good night to each and every one.
So good night, and thank you ever so much, the panelists. I mean, Dr. Andre, Senator Delbert Paris, Wayne James, Hilary Shillingford, and all of those folks who've been listening to us on the radio, listening to us on the internet, who are viewing on Facebook and on YouTube, and joining us and making comments, which we did not have time to read some of your comments made on Facebook, but duly noted, well taken under advisement. And so I want to just say thank you so much to everyone who was on this, contributed to the discussion here tonight, to the callers, and to all our panelists. And just left for me to say good night, and maybe till another Tuesday with another program. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Good night, gentlemen. Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Good night, everyone. God's blessings. God's blessing and guidance.
Wonderful. Take care, folks. Bye.
Okay, very good.